Everybody knows, everybody loves this famous Paul Gilbert pattern. But most people don't play this slick in the most efficient way, and this is why many struggle to build Paul Gilbert level speed with these simple 4 notes. But even those who are able to play this fast are missing out on a lot of the 2-hand synchronization benefits you can get by just tweaking the original lick a little bit and coming up with all kinds of really cool variations that will help you improve your synchronization, improve your accuracy, and build your speed. So today I'm going to show you a few simple technique nuances you need to pay attention to get this slick up to speed really easily, and then I'm going to show you my favorite variations on this basic 4-note pattern that I've used myself and that I use with my students to help them improve their accuracy, efficiency, synchronization, and just their playing overall. Let's begin. The first thing many people do wrong in this specific lick is if they over-rely on the traditional rule about picking where you use your wrist when you're on a single string and you use your arm to change strings. This is generally true, but it's very often misunderstood, and I made a whole video about this which you can check out on the screen right now. But in this particular lick, you want to be using your wrist. You don't want to be using your arm really at all, because if you are over relying on your arm for string changes, your arm is going to be doing this sawing motion like this, which is very, very hard to do when you're going back and forth between 2 strings like this. If you pay attention, you can see that I'm not really using my arm or the elbow at all. It's just all from the wrist. This is the biggest key to playing the slick fast and making it feel easy. The next challenge that happens in the slick happens during the double up portion, which Paul Gilbert sometimes does. You can see him do this in some of his videos, where he doubles up on the string change like this. So he plays it once, then he plays it twice. And the key to doing this is also entirely doing it from the wrist, not engaging your arm at all. If you're trying to do this double up motion with the arm, you're not going to be able to do it fast. So if you want to practice the wrist motion and doing this lick entirely from the wrist, do more of this double up motion on the string change. That's going to help exaggerate this wrist motion you're supposed to train, and it's going to help you a lot with getting your hands in sync and getting this lick up to speed. And by the way, in case you're wondering why I did a downstroke on the G string and an upstroke on the D during the double up part instead of an upstroke on the G and a downstroke on the D, that's because I'm not doing strict alternate picking the way Paul Gilbert does. I use directional picking in all my lead guitar playing, and I believe that every guitar player on the planet must switch to directional picking immediately or burn their guitar. If you want to know what directional picking is and why I think you should be using it when you're playing, check out the video tutorial on the screen right now. But let's keep talking about this lick some more. When you do the string change in this lick, whether you're doing it with directional picking like me or you're doing it wrong, I mean whether you do it with alternate picking, what you want to do is you want the downstrokes to be as a down and away motion with a slight wrist extension, not straight down. And you want upstrokes to be a up and away motion with a slight wrist extension, again, not straight up. The reason for this is if you let the pick go straight down or straight up on the string change, your pick is going to get caught by the string you just played, and that's where people get trapped. That's where they can't do the string skipping motion correctly and they can't play this lick fast. So when I play this slowly, the motions will look like this. I'm going to exaggerate this so you can see this better, but here's what it looks like. Notice how the pick is coming outside the space of the strings a little bit. This is that down and away and up and away motion I was talking about. And when you speed this up, of course, the motions are a lot smaller than what I'm showing you here on camera so you can see them better, but it looks like this when you play it up to speed. This is the secret to getting all parts of the slick correct. By the way, if you're enjoying this video, go ahead and hit the like button so YouTube knows you're enjoying this, and it's going to show it to other guitar players like you so they can benefit the same way you are. Alright, so now that you know that this Paul Gilbert pattern is really all about training your wrist motions, let's talk about how to emphasize and exaggerate this part of your technique so you can train it most effectively. The double up thing that I showed you just a second ago that Paul Gilbert does in many of his videos, that is one variation on the basic pattern that makes it easy to emphasize the string change part of the lick, but for some reason many people stop there. So let me show you a few more variations that I've created and I've been using myself and also with my students to help build their two-hand synchronization and make this lick a lot more fun to play as well. The first idea is to simply double up on the single string part of the lick. So earlier we doubled up on the string change by playing it twice. We can do the same thing on the single string part of the lick by playing it twice. So here's the original pattern. And here is the doubled up on the single string part of the lick variation. And it's really cool. Once you get it up to speed, it sounds super aggressive. Sounds even cooler once you begin extending it to other pairs of strings, this basic pattern, to create longer scale sequences. Then it sounds really kick-ass. We'll talk about how to do that a little bit later on in this video, but right now let's move on to the next variation. The second variation idea, as you might have guessed, is to combine the doubled up single string part of the lick with the doubled up string change part of the lick. Once you put the two together, it becomes a big challenge to keep your hands in sync, because first you're having to get used to playing on one string, a bunch of notes, then you have to do a really quick string change with your wrist again in rapid succession, and you have to switch from playing on one string to a rapid string change all with the wrist. It's quite a big challenge simply because most guitar players never train their wrist motions in this way. Plus, when you're first learning this, it's going to mess with your head a little bit how the basic pattern goes, but once you get it under your fingers, it's really not all that hard. It just takes some practicing to get the synchronization going. So here's how it sounds. So look at the tab that I have on the screen here, practice it, get it under your fingers, and then build it up from there. And the third idea I'll show you before we talk about how to apply this stuff when you're practicing is probably my favorite one, and it's about playing the lick in reverse. So the original 4-note pattern goes like this, and the inverted pattern sounds like this. We're simply changing the direction, and when you play it over and over, here's what it sounds like. And again, concentrate on using the wrist and pay attention to all the details of technique we talked about throughout this video. This variation may feel a little bit strange to most people because that set of wrist motions rarely gets a lot of practice, or at least it did for me, and it felt a little bit strange for me at first. But if you just pay attention to the basic mechanics we talked about in this video, you'll be fine. Alright, so now that you know the technique behind the basic lick and you know some variations on the basic lick, how do you actually practice this? What do you do with this besides just playing the same 4 notes over and over? One of my favorite things to do is to practice learning your fretboard and learning your scales really well with this basic pattern. You can do this by extending your scales from the first fret all the way up to the highest fret on your guitar, like this. Take, for example, the C major scale on strings 2 and 1. And so on, move it up and down this pair of strings right here. You can do this using the Paul Gilbert lick and the variations that I've given you. So here's a cool drill for you. Take the top 2 strings of your guitar, B and high E, and play the C major scale, moving it horizontally from the first fret to the highest frets and back down. And you first do it using the original Paul Gilbert pattern. It's going to sound like this. And continue moving it through other shapes of the scale. Then you gave the first variation that I gave you where you double up on the single string part of the lick and you play the C major scale using that variation, like this. And so on, keep moving it up and down the scale. Then you do the same thing, but use the next variation where you combine the doubled up single string part of the lick and the doubled up string change part of the lick. It's going to sound like this. Work it out through the other shapes of the scale. Finally, do the same thing, but use the third variation I gave you where you'll be playing the inverted pattern of the Paul Gilbert lick, essentially, like this. And so on, keep going up and down the scale. This is a great 2-hand synchronization builder and it's going to help you learn your scales up and down the guitar as well. After you've done all that, stay in the key of C major, but move to the other pairs of strings. So do it on strings 2 and 3, 4 and 3, 5 and 4, and 6 and 5. And after you've done all of that, then you can leave the major scale behind. Then you can use harmonic minor, melodic minor, or other scales you know or use in your music. But use the same basic variations through all of them. And here's one more thing that I promised to show you earlier in this video, so here we go. Instead of just playing through the scale horizontally from the first fret to the highest fret and back down, you can do the same thing with these Paul Gilbert lick variations, but go from the 6th string to the 1st string and back down. So if you take a basic A major scale, for example, you can apply any of these variations to it to create cool sounding scale sequences like this. Here's one of the variations I showed you earlier, played slow. I sped it up a little bit towards the end, but that's the basic scale sequence. And if you know your scales this way, and this way, from the 6th string to the 1st fret, all the 7 shapes of a 3-note per string scale, then you can apply these basic Paul Gilbert variations to all of them and have a lot of fun creating all kinds of scale sequences and building your speed and improving your synchronization. So it just goes to show you how quickly you can improve multiple areas of your playing with one tiny little 4-note lick once you understand all the ins and outs of how to practice the right way. If you want more help with building your guitar speed, hit the link in the description of this video or go to the page that's on the screen right now. I'm going to show you a new way to practice that does not require you to spend 8 hours a day with your guitar. It also doesn't require you to start slow and gradually increase your speed in small increments little by little, because let's face it, it's a pretty boring way to practice, and most importantly, doesn't really work all that well. If you want to know a new way to practice to build guitar speed, hit the link, enter your email address, I'll send you the video for free. If you like this video, hit the like button so YouTube knows you're enjoying this content, and it's going to spread it out to other guitar players like you, and they'll benefit from it the same way you did. This is Mike Filipov, guitar practice expert from PracticeGuitarNow.com. I'll see you next time.